Call of Duty has 3 huge problems, in my opinion, that need to be addressed between COD Next, which is at the end of this month, and I'll be live streaming, and then the integration of Warzone. Somewhere between that, these 3 things need to be addressed. We already know a few things about Warzone and kind of some of the leaks. Things can definitely change. These things aren't confirmed. Verdansk early 2025. Most are guessing season 2, which would put it somewhere between February and March. So that could be pretty good, but that means no big map until then. There's a new Resurgence map that got leaked back in June, and I think this will probably come out before Verdansk. Hopefully season 1 or mid-season update of season 1. If not, then it's going to be pushed out to season 3 or 4 after Verdansk. So it's kind of a long wait. So hopefully it's sooner. And it'll do something like we get Urzikstan right at the launch, and then we got Fortune's Keep and then Rebirth Island. Hopefully it goes that tempo. Omni Movement's supposed to be there. Creative class is supposed to have changes. We're supposed to have wild card, which will definitely change how you create your class, as well as the dedicated melee. And then the biggest thing that I was asking for since the day 1 of Warzone 2 is supposed to be no more backpacks. So that's a huge plus. There's probably some other leaks out there, but those are some of the main bullet points that we're aware of, or at least working our assumptions off of. We'll find out again more at COD Next. I think the number 1 issue it needs to be addressed or covered in some way on how they're going to address this issue is the cheating and hacker situation. And the cheater problem ends up being a bigger problem because it dominoes and impacts other aspects of the game. You go to a ranked leaderboard right now, even though they said they addressed it, there's still plenty of people on the ranked leaderboard that are clearly boosting or cheating some way to get to the top, which makes that entire mode not even worth playing. For both multiplayer and Warzone, that dynamic of that reward versus time spent just doesn't appear. On top of that, you end up with this notion that you think anyone that's good is cheating, and it kind of puts that doubt. And we've kind of all been there. Even if you're an above average player, you can kind of look at someone, was this guy cheating? Let me be ultra skeptical here to see if they're cheating. And then maybe you go, maybe, you know, just lucky shot or whatever. And you come to that conclusion. But the fact that there's no trust in the anti-cheat makes it so that those thoughts creep in, versus the opposite, where if we thought it was super effective, those thoughts wouldn't even creep in. We'd be like, just GG's, good shots, good plays. And then maybe you'd have the one-off where people still slip through because there's no anti-cheat that will be 100% effective. But still, there you go. At least that leads to other issues. Other part where people have limited time to play the game. They jump on and they run into a cheater, and then they're just like, yeah, I'm off for the day. Whereas maybe they would have played 2 or 3 hours, leveled their guns, had a good time with their friends. Basically, that gaming experience is ruined and they got to go play something else, or nothing at all. And I think on top of this, it leads to a lot of misconceptions in the anti-cheat system. We know that the shadow ban system is pretty annoying because it's pretty opaque. There's no transparency around the system. People will say, hey, you know what, spam reporting works, even though they directly told us it doesn't. But because there's no trust in the system, there's no trust in the words that they're writing. So even if this is 100% factual, like it says right here, basically that spam reporting doesn't exist. And then if you do multiple reports, you basically get your own account in trouble, which may be why some people experience shadow bans more than others if they're always reporting people. So what is true or not true? All we know is this is what has been said, and there's people that have anecdotal experience that contradicts this in their own playtime, whether they switch from console to PC and then they end up shadow banned because their trust score goes down or whatever the case. This ends up leading to a lot of problems. I know another common one that people get caught up in is they'll go, oh, well, Activision lets these people cheat just because they make more money from it. In reality, that's not the truth either, because a lot of times if people's going to cheat, they're going to get the unlock tool, so they get everything unlocked. And you're wondering how the heck they get to a high level account. They're actually stealing people's account because those players don't have additional safeguards. They just play the game and then their account gets stolen. A lot of other misconceptions, they think, oh, streamers are whitelisted and they can't get banned. Even though we've had people like Magnificent and 5x5 permanently banned, a 5x5 literally got invited to an event. Her account got flagged and got perma-banned. So whatever whitelist she would have been on, she got banned still. So clearly the system will ban anyone regardless if they're a streamer or not. So there's a misconceptions about that. And then there's fear mongering out there. So this 100% I think needs some addressing. There's probably going to be some kind of blog, but it needs to be very detailed on how they're going to solve this, because right now it's just lip service, or at least that's the way it's felt, because anytime they put something out, there might be a little bit of a dip in cheaters or the anti-cheat looking like it's working more effectively. But then it just ends up looking like it didn't work. So it's like, well, can I believe you this time? How do we build that trust? I don't know how to do it, but that's up to them to figure out, because there's a lot of people that do not trust them. That's number one. Number two is going to be the balancing issue. I think one of the biggest problems with this game currently is the weapon balancing has been atrocious, especially with Warzone. At least with multiplayer, the TTK is fast enough. You can get away with using a bunch of stuff. In zombies, you kind of narrow out to about 5 guns. A lot of people get a little bit overpowered with legendary triple pack, so it's not as big an issue. But with Warzone, you feel heavily limited. And Call of Duty's always had metas, so this isn't like a new concept that YouTubers created. Call of Duty has always had some form of metas. There's even maps on zombies where it's like, well, you're not supposed to open that door because it goes against the meta of the route you're supposed to open doors at. Like, this isn't a new concept. Probably do a full video kind of talking about the evolution of metas over Call of Duty, but that can be something at a later date that I plan. But back in the day, one of the things that didn't happen very often is the metas didn't shift. Games didn't get updated nearly as much. Maybe when there was a map pack, things that happened. We didn't even get DLC weapons till BO2, Peacekeeper being the first one. As time progressed, games have switched over to this live service game model. Fortnite really popularized this. They made a lot of money. Apex is on this, and pretty much every video game at the moment, except for some single player games, has this live service model. And although we get a ton of content, we get the different events every week, we get new weapons every season, mid-season, we get new maps, we get new modes, we get all this stuff. But it never feels like the meta actually changes. I know that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but it felt like in Warzone 1, even though it was still live service, we had pretty good options in terms of metas for all of Verdansk. Verdansk 84, we had even wider breadth there with all the Cold War weapons kind of shifting more to movement. And then in Vanguard, we had quite a bit of different alternatives as the year went on. And we could actually argue about what was the long range meta and what was the close range meta. And what was good as sniper support, what were the best snipers. We had a lot of discussion around that, and that's what helped for several different reasons. As soon as we got to Warzone 2, we got the 100 ARPK meta. We had the Fennec right at the start, and then it switched to the Lockman sub, and we kind of had that most of the year. And there wasn't really a lot of variance. We've had the same or more updates. We've had the same or more battle passes and seasonal weapons and all that stuff. It hasn't led to more variability in the meta. And I've covered this topic a little bit more in detail, but it really comes down to one problem, is that the updates heavily focus on removing the fun from the game. And how they generally do this is through nerfs instead of buffs. Obviously, there's some outliers where something is broken, overpowered, you got to nerf them, of course. But there's some things that are in a great spot. They feel good, and no one's really complaining about it. And then it gets a nerf. And then it's like, oh, that's an option that we had. Now we have less options. And that wouldn't be so bad as if we got a buff to replace it, or even like, a buff in general to kind of add to that meta. Because right now we know the STG is the long range meta. You can use a couple other things, but reality, no, STG is it. And what's going to end up happening is they're going to nerf the STG, and it's going to be like, well, everything feels like trash now. And we've talked about this entire year. It's been one of the biggest things that it seems so glaringly obvious that you should be able to just buff stuff to make it more fun. They actively subtract it, and it doesn't really work. We're at a point where we should be getting buffs every update, and new weapons should be entering the fold. If something is broken, like we had the Core 45s, Akimbo, whatever, clearly glitched, broken, then it should be fixed. But we're not talking about that. Why is the MCW not in the meta conversation? The SVA is there, but why did it get nerfed again? It was in a good spot. Why are we just removing guns, removing this, subtracting them? It just doesn't make sense to me. So that, I think there needs to be a game plan to address it. They said they would address it, so now the words are empty for this next year, because they said that they wanted to be more aggressive about this. And all they've done is nerf, and that's not right. And one of the biggest problems that has been all year is server stability. These are connection issues. Obviously, the occasional server outage or maybe the bad lobby. Cool, whatever. That's kind of expected in gaming, especially when you're getting as many people into a lobby. This has gone on for far too long, and it's in pretty much every mode. You play multiplayer, you can run into these issues. You play zombies, you disconnect. Warzone, you're lagging all over the place. The clock can freeze on you. It's like, what the heck's going on? And I don't know if it's an engine issue or there's other outlying issues. And in the second you go and play other Call of Duties that are older, you just don't run into this issue. So whatever it is, that should also be addressed. So if it's an engine issue, they need to go and solve the root cause of this problem so we don't have this issue. If it's SBMM, they need to tune it in a way that we don't have this issue. because connection is a huge priority when you're playing a video game online against other people that are shooting you back. You need to be able to make sure that the connection isn't the reason you're dying. There's enough reasons to die in the game, whether it's the cheaters or the hackers or whatever. If you think there's other things, let me know in the comment section. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. See you on the next one. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.